So you're like everyone's teammate, just depends on how you approach the strategy.
Exactly.
This one's for the disruptors, the uncommon, the unconventional, the rebels. You're not here to take things lying down. Well, season 2 is about shaking things up. I'm Beatrice, and this is the Art of Branding podcast. Be ready, be badass. Let's shake some shit up.
So the queen of badassery, Beatrice, is here to talk about brand strategy and all the things that she's done to create an evolution of branding. And I want to hit her with some hard questions because she has the courage to ask them, but it's weird to talk to yourself on the podcast sometimes, So you need a sidekick that hones in on what's important. Are you 12 on the inside? If you are, you're going to love this podcast. And if you're not, let's hope for the best. What do you think? Should we do some fun, just zany, kind of off the cuff, like real question stuff? Or should we be serious today, Beatrice? What do you think?
I mean, half, 50. Well, no, 85, 25.
Interestingly enough, there's people that talk about particular niche or segment or a focus of brand strategy. You take a holistic view a lot of times, just why brand strategy is important, but people will take an angle like, okay, let's target websites, and if you don't understand that, we'll step back and go. There's people who take science-based approach to brand strategy and put a focus and an understanding on it. You've spent the last couple of years, I feel, trying to explain what the hell brand strategy is and why it's important. Do you find that on purpose that you're doing that, or do you find it difficult to kind of bring people into the mind of yours to get to that bravery and break down all the parts they need to get to in their business to have that focus?
I feel like over the last 2 years, it's really developed. So like the first year, and like you'll see that in the podcast as well, right? Like the first year was just really breaking it down, like into what it is that brand strategy is. Because so much of the time, a lot of people approach it, it's like, oh, it's a part of marketing, or maybe it's like some visuals, etc. Like, okay, yeah, there's a few people that have a gist of it, but even within brand strategy, right? Like there's brand strategists who approach it from like a purely like here's a 99-page document, here's a strategy, go forth and multiply. And then the business owners are just like, I'm not going to read this. But then, there's people that approach it just purely from that graphic design or the visual perspective in their background. So for me, it's really been developing and pulling it out to that side where, in the last year, I've recognized that, hey, that operations background is the benefit, the leverage, rather than something which is a weakness, right? Initially, I thought I was like, okay, this is a lot of different experiences. This is like a lot in like operations, marketing, etc. But actually, it's there to help as a benefit, rather, where here's how we can implement this idea, this strategy. Okay, so this is the position. How can we implement this in your social media? How can we implement this within your team so that it's like a full, well-rounded? So it's gone from explaining brand strategy to like now where it's more like, hey, let's have a look at how we can implement different parts of your brand strategy so that it actually stands out. Like once you've really honed in those bits. So yeah, no, there are still the basics in there because that question will always be asked, but it's gone more into like, all right, let's take this to the next level of like implementing in operations.
People starting out, start in a broad scope, broad brush, broad range, and then kind of hone in, or do you find that doesn't always happen, where you kind of have this accordion effect where you're in and out trying to figure yourself out in the first little bit in business, as you seem to have done?
I feel like most of the people I speak to, and I speak to a hell of a lot in the DMs, emails, etc., even in the comment section, it's always like, oh, I do XYZ. Like it's always more things, or even like audience-wise, a wide audience, and then it's like honing it down over time. because it's that realization like, hey, if I'm going to give this service well, for a lot of people, it's like, okay, well, to do it really well, it's just this one base thing. And especially then when you're only speaking about one thing, it's like your audience also seems to grasp it a lot clearer, right? So like instead of like, oh, I do, say for example, I do marketing, like I do social media. Okay. That's one person. And another person is like, I help with making sure that all your Instagram posts are relatable, including like image, videos, etc. Right? Like it makes it super, super clear for that audience. So yeah, of course you're going to push away people, but you're going to draw in a lot more of the people who just like, they get it as soon as they read it. They're like, okay, this is for me.
So that approach would come in handy when you're not a six-figure influencer on social media. You have a refined audience that is going to be able to come at you, and you have a more likely chance of them spending. Is that kind of what I'm getting from it?
Yeah, I mean, influencers are like one thing, right? Like if you're really trying to run a business, and this is like who I'm talking to here, it's like you want to get like consistent clients. You want to get people who understand what it is that you're doing, rather than like just follow you for the sake of like, oh, hey, this is fun. This is like entertainment. Like fun and entertainment is one part, right? But like having someone who actually gets like when they can come to you. So like, okay, maybe right now they're not ready for it. But if you're the first person that comes to mind at that point, then that's when you win.
Have you been able to win with the kangaroo? If there was a long time, I remember when starting out, you're trying to mascot, you're trying to have the sidekick, and there was a while that people didn't understand the cultural reference, or it just happened to be the 1% of people had zero clue about anything except for outside of their bubble. I don't know. But was that a struggle for you to kind of get people on side with this bat wielding kangaroo that seemingly came out of nowhere on perspective?
I mean, Rue has been hella like useful, incredible. Like she's a conversation starter. So like maybe 80% of people who connect, 70-80% mention her, like the kangaroo, be it next to the name or in the banner. That's their first mention, right? So like she doesn't need to, she's not there to like close the sale, right? It's like just to trigger like the attention. Because first is attention. And then like once you have the attention, it's like having people understand like what it is that you're there to help with, that position in the market.
I see more people are saying in the comments these days on your social posts and LinkedIn and Insta, wherever, they're saying, oh yeah, something about Rue trying to do something badass, like take knees out or something. So I think people are getting it. And maybe that just comes with the repetition and those icebreakers, and people are like, oh, that's really cool. Now it's something memorable that they can relate to, because they want to have a kangaroo that they can put their snacks in the little pocket and then also have a bat on the side, whatever their mood strikes, you know?
Well, I think she's covered more of like the badass side, like, especially with the shades and the baseball bat. So like, if it was just a kangaroo, like, I don't think it would work. It'd be just like another, hey, it's another animal. But the bat and the shades, yeah.
So mascot for everybody?
No, I think it's not necessarily needed for everyone. It just has to fit for your specific brand, like what it is that you want to portray. At the very best, like you want like to have the people, the human side, and you'll see brands like, okay, like Duolingo has got Duo, right? So it is something that you want to be selective about. Like how much do you want to invest in having like a brand? Like how involved are you going to get with that? Like, are you going to have them animated? Because once you have like that voice built out, like what are they going to sound like? They like, you maybe want to have them as a secondary kind of voice, which you can banter with, right? Like it's almost like you have two different humans, or like where you're having that conversation. And I've seen that done well. But again, like same as using nostalgia, same as using like pop culture, same like everything. There's nothing that's for everybody, right? And you just need to recognize whether that's something that you want for your brand or not.
Hot Ones is a YouTube show where this guy with no hair that seems to be adverse to any sort of spice in the Scoville chain. He has great interviews. I feel they're a little scripted, but he gets the point across and they come across as something very cool and they resonate, especially when you get hotter and hotter. I watched LL Cool J suffer through because he is spice adverse. Like the first one, he started sweating, and that was fun because he's supposed to be a badass gangster from the 90s, But the interesting part that I'm getting to is the character. They actually licensed animated characters like Donald Duck or the Family Guy, Peter Griffin, to come in and play a character so they could craft that entertainment piece. Not to force it, but to bring in that persona and that entertainment value.
Yeah.
For me, I guess I'm trying to ask, do you find that disruption? Do you find that to be just entertainment? Or do you think that's just some sort of, I don't know, play that's kind of cheesy and just kind of there for views and clicks?
So I don't know about them hiring out for these voices. However, I've seen Hot Ones. I've watched like quite a few different episodes, and again, like it really comes to the right timing. He was in there early and with a unique idea. So now, like, there's the chicken like corner store. There's like another girl that started, like she's a journalist, etc., that started a very similar idea where you're just sitting there together over chicken. I feel like we need other shows, which it's not chicken, maybe it's other food, but or like sitting at a bar and having like a shot of tequila or something like that. But I think that there is a specific identity around that, and I think that they've done it really well. So like it is a very memorable concept of like, hey, let's have, I don't know if it's like 4 or 5 different like types of levels of spice, and have people like have an interview going at the same time. And I know that there's one person that they're doing that interviewing while on a roller coaster as well. So you're getting reactions that you wouldn't normally expect from just a normal interview. And that's what makes it memorable, because we're so used to, like, you can scroll YouTube or whatever and you'll find an interview for sure.
I've seen comedians now, there's some that like fishing. So they're in Texas, they're inviting their comedians over and they're doing fishing and they're complaining about how difficult this is, especially when they're new to fishing comedians that have no idea. And they just chit chat and they'll have a couple cameras going, they'll flip between the two. Or now there's, I saw Tom Hanks was in a guest interview for one of his friends and they were going on a hike. He just had a selfie camera out. They might be in their 60s, so they're kind of sort of doing it, but they're just talking and having fun and rating each other on a scale of 1 to 10 on how important their friendship is. And they're trying to like negotiate in between the 1 to 10. Okay, 7 is giving you money. I don't like you that much. How about a 6? So that stuff is kind of fun because it's different. They have their own personalities come out and they're having a little fun with it. So you're right. The Hot Ones might have started this whole thing where they're doing this, or there's these what are they, Midwestern guys that are talking about just random stuff. They're Midwestern dads that come out and just talk in a bar and they take in questions. So definitely people are more interested in doing stuff that's unconventional, and it's very like practically Canadian, which is kind of funny, and they're very stereotypical. But I think these ideas are coming out, like the hiking or the fishing, just these weird things that are just coming out of the woodwork to entertain people.
I think that idea in itself, it's very applicable to business. And that's how like I approach it for businesses as well, right? Like they're taking something which is totally normal the interview or the discussion with a guest and putting it in a different setting. So same thing is like when you're in business and you're looking to like stand out, right? If you take a step back and look at it from like an outside perspective, or if you look at like other verticals or other industries and see what you can adapt and how you can adjust how you're perceived. Maybe it's earlier, maybe it's like you're doing something from just a slightly different way, right? But it's like a way in which people remember. They're like, oh, hey, instead of having, a Zoom call where we're sitting here having like a spicy chicken. And it's very replicable, like be it between business interviews.
More relatable, more normal.
Exactly, right? Exactly. More like you always want to have one of your feet at least in something that people understand. Because if both feet are like doing something you completely wild, crazy, and people don't get it, people won't get it, and nobody will like be interested. But if at least one foot is in something that people know, and then one foot is like just slightly like a different, slightly different perception, put those together, and that's what creates that interest. That's what creates that like attention.
Is that why all these marketers and advertisers are going to weird in YouTube ads and Prime ads? MGM Bet, or I don't know if you have that in the West here. It's MGM is a studio in Vegas or Florida, and they're kind of partnered with Disney-ish. But there's Jamie. He's into music and hip hop. And he's in a race car doing something, or there's people coming out just doing this random stuff about this Call of Duty game where he's just some old guy with whittling hair and a beard, and he's just doing something completely random, has nothing to do with the video game, and he's just doing something really random and weird, and he's taking out a hostage, and it's supposed to be his garbage, and he's just running around the neighborhood, and they're filming him, and then they go, Call of Duty 6. Get in stores now. I'm like, why? What am I missing something? Are people trying to hit something specific? And is that part of their brand strategy that just here's some weirdo with $1 million, have fun? Like, is that are people lost, desperate, or can you kind of fill me in? Why are people just going left field weird all of a sudden in their ads?
I don't know. I feel like to me that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Maybe they're looking for a specific kind of audience, like his audience. They're trying to resonate. They're trying to get like people that already follow him. So that would be more in terms of like influencer marketing rather than like really creating a brand. Whereas, if you take a look at like Nespresso and George Clooney, right? That is more about the brand because both have a very consistent voice, right? And by him like being there in the ads, he's personifying the brand. He's giving it like, okay, so this is what like, if I shop with the brand, like this is what like that feels like. Whereas these ones that you're saying, it's kind of almost like, oh, hey, like we want this audience without really thinking too deeply into it.
It's like a reverse Uno is what I call it. You're grabbing the person, the influencer, sticking them in the ad, and be like, okay, here's your people. Instead of trying to go and find those people, just kind of bring them in like a magnet. Poof, there they are.
Like
magic.
To me, I don't see that as brand building. Because again, I'm not familiar with this specific ad. Like I could be completely wrong here, but if there's someone totally different audience and everything like that, different values, and this brand is trying to work with them, then it's probably doing more damage to the brand in the long run because the people who are devoted to that brand from before are going to be like, wait, so this brand that we've known for like 20 years, it's suddenly changing in a completely different direction.
So it's a huge risk is really what they're doing.
It is. Like, again, I don't know if the voice is similar or not, right? Like if the values align, it's a different story.
We'll have to do a follow-up. I'll send them to you and see what you think, and maybe we'll get a reaction. I'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you guys?
Exactly.
That won't float in Europe kind of thing. That'll be fun. You didn't know what you were doing with your podcast when it started. Respectfully, like, I'm not trying to trash you or belittle you or have fun, but you listen to 5 minutes of podcasting, and then you decided this should be fun. I can do this. And so that was a risk.
Yeah, for
As
sure.
it played out, it surprised yourself. We've been talking, which is good. You've done more than you thought, but did you ever come in with expectations? Did you ever have certain goals? Are you kind of feeling like you should do more? Or are you going to listen to those people who say you should have authority in your podcast and you should do this, this, and this, and you should have 12 deals or prospectors come out of your each episode? It's yelling, give me whatever the money thing is, like, just make it rain. Is that, how did it go?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Like, obviously, there's a lot of like tempting voices out there, and that's the same as with anything, right? Whether we're doing business or whether we're doing podcasting, like there's always more. There's always something different that you could try, right? And yeah, no, I did approach podcasting as something with like, all right, so this is something different. This is something outside of my comfort zone. It's not something that I'm used to, but I did see it as something where even if I don't get any success from it, like either way, I will grow from it, right? From having these conversations, from speaking in like different ways to, more minds. Because I'm used to like speaking to people in like social networking settings, right? This is like a completely different arena.
Yeah.
Different considerations, but I've enjoyed it, and I don't know. I'm keeping my mind open about like how this will evolve. Like I love how it's evolved so far in terms of like going from that very stagnant like interview style to where this season's almost been like bantering of different minds,
interactive, maybe
yeah, and really interesting guests who have been like pushing the boundaries on their own part, right?
But that's a lot of work. 2 seasons, 20 episodes each, for no expectations. Like, when you're talking about brand strategy for people who aren't insane like yourself, who just throw spaghetti at a wall, is the expression. I guess because you're close to Italy, that's the best I can do, and just come up with whatever. But putting that 40 episodes worth of time in, like, that's a grind for no expectations. What would you tell somebody that's not wanting to go that far without knowing if they're even going to get one lead? Is that worth the strategy? Is that worth the risk?
Get them to focus on like what their main channel is, right? For me, like my main channel is LinkedIn, and I'm like, it's between that and the newsletter, the Badass Mob, like between those two, I am like confident of like, getting leads, etc., and speaking to people who are. And to me, this podcast is just a help up. It's a support to that, right? Like same thing like as you have lead magnets, etc., right? Like this is another one of those like, hey, like how can I help you? If you're not quite ready yet, like these are different experiences that other business owners have had. These are other approaches that you could take if you just listen to, a few episodes, like 20 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, you're getting that out of it. So yeah, it is a hell of a lot of time commitment. So I wouldn't recommend it unless somebody really wants like to spend that time on it or they want to outsource on it, right? Like, okay, like I see that podcast can be a standalone.
Sure.
But like if you're just starting fresh and you want to like do that along with like 5 different other things, I would say just pick one thing.
Yeah, you tend to stretch yourself thin, but I think you like that part of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Which is good. Do you find that podcasting at least gets those discovery calls, a bit of a pushback saying, here's a value add?
Yeah.
enjoy my podcast, and then you don't have to sit on 30-minute calls all the time? Is that at least some value that's come your way?
It
Some
has.
interest, or maybe somebody's willing to buy that wouldn't know you and just listen to a few episodes like, oh, this resonates. This is cool. I don't know.
It has. Like the longer that the podcast has gone on, it has really like developed as like, oh, hey, so like, there's also this podcast, there's this newsletter, depending on like what your strength is. Like some people want to listen to things, some people want to read things, right? So
Sure.
that's been a different offer for them.
So why the newsletter then? Why the social media? Why the website? Why the podcast? Why do you want to cater to everyone if you're supposed to be niching in a certain person that you want to draw your attention to?
But it isn't for everyone, right? Like the voice that you see on each of the channels, it's the exact same voice, right? So like between the newsletter, it's an extension. You're making what you see on LinkedIn, like it's extended, more information there. The podcast is like a completely different like extension in terms of like having guest perspectives. And then say, for example, LinkedIn, it's like a shortened format.
You had two people come to you that are podcast fans. You had project managers and you had a furniture design company of sorts. I apologize. I don't know the gentleman's industry, but it was kind of around there. Both from like completely separate angles. One's in a rock and roll and one likes to giggle at himself, according to your clips, which is fun. So how do you, I guess the industry has nothing to do with the brand strategy. Is that kind of what I'm getting at? You just find people that you click with and they come to you and say, I really need your help. This is what we're going to do. We find a package and you're good to go. Or do you want to focus on a particular industry and help them that way?
So me, in terms of the industry, and jumping back to them, they're in the architectural hardware space. So they like, doorknobs, etc., that sort of area. But in terms of the industry, I've mainly been focused in like B2B or service-based industries because that is like my main strength. However, the biggest factor has always been like, okay, has this business been established for a certain period? Okay. And if so, is there that vibe connect between both parties? Because without that, we can't get to a clear positioning, differentiation, voice, message, all these things, because it requires time. It requires a lot of like conversations and deeper questions. So that's why I do have those calls in advance that provides a good 20 minutes of help to them ahead of their time, and is to see whether there is that vibe.
Was there a common similarity between the two? They're most recent, so I'm picking on them. But was there a particular similarity between the two? Why they came to you? Why they said, "Hey, Beatrice, you're the queen of badassery, of brand strategy"? Did they tell you how they kind of got hooked into the idea of being able to change things and be more clear? And could you explain why you, just to help people know?
So in terms of what they both said, like what resonated was that different message, different perspective. That's what resonated with them. They were looking on LinkedIn, etc., and they saw a post or a few posts, etc., and they're just like, damn, well, this is like a completely different perspective to most others on LinkedIn. And obviously that's intentional. And your other question, which is for some reason slipped my mind.
Why you?
Why me? You mean like...
Yeah. Why they pick you? Why did you stand out? Was it because the flashy sound effects and videos? Was it because you decided to pretend to punch the camera?
So because of those posts, like that different perspective, that, and they've been searching. So for most of the cases, it's like they've tried things like ad spend. They've tried like work on like social media marketing. They've like spent money on like a website, etc. And none of them have like really shifted in terms of that awareness that like, okay, we're known for a certain thing, right? So the biggest issue has always been like, we want to have a clear message that stands out, right? And all that comes from is like having that clear positioning and having those like values really honed in, so that when we get to that messaging, etc., voice, what that sounds like, super clear. It's like it's straightforward, and you can carry that on to, say, for example, if you're hiring a third party marketing agency or even to your marketing team internally, it's something that they can go from, like that system that's there. And that's what they've noted as well. They're like, oh shit, like, you know, there's actually a system that we can just take it and like go roll. Like you're not just being left out hanging with no information.
Is that part of your strategy to focus on messaging at top of funnel and then carry through? Or do you have certain clients that want a particular focus on mid funnel or right at the close to kind of get that positioning? Or do you try to stay away from that marketing and just have more of a holistic view on strategy?
For me, it's like very much the holistic view. So it's like, okay, say for example, if we start on like, you know, the internal brand. So that's your structure right there. So like your values, your vision, your mission, these kind of things. Once we start honing those in, it's like, okay, how can these be implemented? Like, say, for example, in your social media, how can they be implemented like within your team so that, you know, when they're dealing with clients, or say, for example, your sales team are speaking to people, how can they integrate that? So it's so that they can integrate it throughout their whole funnel. It's not one particular part of the funnel. Whatever that experience is at the bottom of the funnel, at the middle of the funnel, at the bottom, like at the top, it needs to be that consistent brand presence, like consistent perception and expectation of what it is that, you know, the kind of brand that you're working with, the kind of people that you're working with.
This American Life has done the flip. They've been extremely consistent. They've come from national public radio and the American side of podcasting and radio space. Miss American Life has had a lot of docuseries, a lot of investigative journalism, and which kind of stemmed called Serial with Sarah Koenig, for those who are familiar. She's investigative journalist in the United States, and she had a lot of seasonal-based investigative journalism come out. Now this big conglomerate of a podcast brand has panicked, knowing that they've lost about 66% of their revenue in 1 year because of the disruption, the people coming into the space all of a sudden just interrupting. Do you think that it's because they're too safe? Do you think that's because of just the blowing up or explosion of post-COVID podcasting? Or do you think it's just something else that they just forgot about and then they're now reactive and panicking?
You know, I wasn't familiar about them until you've mentioned them recently. And it's looking into them, it seems like that they've been around for so long that they haven't really made any necessary pivots. Like, you know,
they just exist.
They just exist, right? Like, and as you go along, like every 6 to 12 months, you need to be having a look like, okay, so what is my current brand? Like, how are we being perceived? What is the competition doing? What is the market at? Like, you know, where the people who are buying from you, what are their values, like, etc. And how have you changed? And then adapting from that. It doesn't need to be like massive jumps, right? It's always like lots of little ones to adapt. And I think that part has been missing. So now they're only just catching up and they're like, oh, well, damn, like, you know, looking around at the market around us, everything's changed and what we're doing isn't working anymore, which happens in a lot of businesses. Like, you know, say, for example, brick and mortar businesses that they've been in business for so long, but then suddenly like they look up and they're like, hang on, my incoming like customers, it's stagnated or like it's reducing even. And then it's like that mad rush to like, okay, what can we do? How can we get more? Maybe we should spend on ads. Maybe we should get on socials, right? Whereas like just having a look internally, like what is going on? Like where are the gaps there?
What are maybe one or two ways to hit those gaps? You don't have to be a big conglomerate, but there's been recent flooded of news to saying that small or micro creators on LinkedIn, for example, are just shitting the bed on reach. Is there something that you'd recommend to start with and say, hey, this is maybe some messaging you could look at. This is some sort of comparison you could do. This is some sort of industry research you could try, or this is a thing that you might want to try to differentiate and stand out and get that attention back. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, firstly, I would suggest is looking inwards. I wouldn't necessarily say look outwards first. It's like, okay, I would have a survey and see like, okay, what do you perceive as like this brand's values? What do you perceive like, is it how we stand in the market, right? Get the team's perspective on that. See, like, do they line up? Are there any similar ones, right? And then I would also go have a look, okay, like what's going on with the market? How has it changed? What are competitors doing? Take note of these things and then bring it back. Okay, what are our values really? Like, yes, you do need to like re-go into those things because after the time, these have just been left up on a website or put into like a paper, like on a paper and put into a drawer. Revisit these things, make sure that they're accurate, and then make sure that it's reflected in the team. Do training with them, get their feedback. Like, hey guys, you know, this is our values, or this is our position in the market that we'd like to have. How do you think we can do this?
Right. In lieu of the team, is that you?
Yeah.
To help look inward and discover these sort of things?
Yeah.
So you're like everyone's teammate, just depends on how you approach the strategy.
Exactly. It is very much like on that strategy and then the implementation side, like, okay, what can we do? And then like talking through it, then actually getting it tested out. Because until you test it out, everything is just theory, right? Yeah. Like, so go and put out a poll out there, see if people are interested. Try out those two different positionings in like a newsletter. Do like an A/B testing in like socials, right? See which one actually, which of your two ideas hits harder. Because if you're not testing it, then you won't know, right? Same as like if you decide on something, again, like you can't just be like, yeah, so our position is XYZ, and then put it back into like put it on the website, put it on a piece of paper, save it on like the desktop. That's it. The only way the positioning, your brand perception, all these things standing out is going to work is if you actually start implementing it.
When you did your self-discovery, you looked inward to discover your brand, your messaging. Did you look for specific words in the Oxford Dictionary? Like, did you know badassery was already in the Oxford Dictionary? I had no idea. It's fantastic. Did you look after, be like, okay, something legit has to prove that I'm the real deal. So I go to the Oxford Dictionary because they're the dictionary. You know, that's what they do. They have to know.
Incidentally, I did not look until like people were like, oh, so like this is not the style that like I want to be. And then so I looked at it, I was like, I'm not here to be like a gangster or like something just like negative, right? In the negative sense of the word. So when I looked it up, I was like, I was right. It's just basically like badassery, doing something at an exceptional level. And I was like, yes, exactly. This is right. Like, this is what it like is everything.
It's no fault of your own. The media takes Badassery and then converts it into Sons of Anarchy, which is a popular motorcycle show in the West, probably in Spain as well. But that sort of thing, and they go to the mobsters and the one percenters and the people that are out there to get blood. And that's not really fair to people who just want to do a little bit of different change, disrupting, and just kind of add something spice in their life. They don't want to go out and, take out the world and, Hiroshima all over the place. Like, that's crazy, right? So you just want to do a little bit. And then when I talk about creative risks, there are people in this world who think that should be mind explosions and taking off your pants and podcasts and doing all this wild stuff that, I don't know, Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe are trying to do in American politics. And it's not required, just to get that showmanship and that clickbaitness. So I struggle with that too when I talk about creative risk. People implode. It's just a little bit of thing. We just have to have maybe an audio hook or something else, or just pizzazz your videos to have that clear messaging and then punch the camera, because that's all part of the whole essence. So Badassery,
exactly.
Is that some people's fault? I guess I'll step back after my little rant. How do you position that to someone? Say, this is how you should position this differently to your audience to kind of take that, I don't know, that stereotype away from a particular word or an ideology or something like Badassery, to kind of clean it up and not be so scary, I guess is what my point is. Do you have any ideas how you can kind of soften those things a bit to take away people's misconceptions?
One foot in the known. I want to go back to that part that I mentioned earlier. Just keep 1 foot in the known. Like, it only needs to have like that little, like, one part which is different. Everything else can be the same.
So when you're skydiving, you want a parachute. If you don't have one, then
maybe you have a bright pink parachute. That's your one difference. You're still doing the exact same thing, right? That would be like, say, for example, you're a parachuting company, right? You help people skydive or whatever, skydiving company. Your one difference, aside from like maybe you have like an all women team and your parachutes are all hot pink, and then you guys do like one certain, like, I don't know, pose for photos. Like,
or maybe they have a podcast while they're skydiving.
Exactly.
That could be a differentiator. That's different.
Have one specific thing, right? Like, there always just needs to be that 1 foot in the known. Just one little like thing, which is, have a look in your industry. What annoys you that you're like, well, this could be done differently? What's the one thing that, that you could consistently, every single time you have a client, every single time you post, every single time, like, it is something that you can consistently show. What is that one thing?
How do I get past the constant desire to iterate? Because there's that constant, like, it's never good enough. The feeding the machine to balancing out, okay, I've hit the threshold where I'm going to freak out my audience and then, be homeless tomorrow. Is there a way that you would kind of pitch that idea to a particular client, saying, hey, you iterate until this, you've gone too far and you pull back? Or do you have a way to be able to check yourself, I guess, and have those balances in place so you don't go batshit crazy and then iterate till your hair falls out? I don't know.
Always have like that one, like, go-to, right? Be it like you have a go-to partner, business partner, or a go-to like external source, like consultant or auditor or friend or something. Like, have something external where you can touch base with on ideas, like someone who's supportive but also like is going to keep you grounded, like, and they're fully aware, and like they keep on pushing, right? Like, hey, this you can achieve a lot, right? But they also like, well, let's keep that 1 foot there, 1 foot in the known, while keeping it to your voice, right? Like, keeping it to the biggest thing that I found is like, because there are so many different ways to write a message, it is so easy to accidentally get off that main positioning, right? So like, say, for example, you choose a certain position in the market You want to hone in on that one difference, or you want to hone in on the one thing. Like, hey, we want to be known for XYZ, right? Or we want to be known for doing this in X way. Keeping consistent to that I found is like the biggest challenge. Like, just making sure that every single message, every single touch point stays on that.
When you've talked about differentiating, keeping one foot on the ground and doing something a little different to kind of keep people's interest and kind of move with that machine that's ever growing and interesting. For season 3, that's supposed to be coming. That's the rumor I hear on the street. And what different things are you going to do that are going to stand out and challenge yourself while still being grounded? Care to tease us at all? Am I putting you on the spot?
It might be.
Punch the camera?
It might be. I don't know. I've thought about it. So, I've been tossing and turning the idea, because again, like as we said before, it is a significant time, consumer.
Maybe it's time to quit. Just not to quit, to put it to rest, take a pause, take off a year and go to Canada or Australia, whatever it is you do.
Well, definitely not back to Australia, but I will give it like another pause again. And this time I will continue sharing posts and clips from it compared to like the 6 months following the first season. But I think, if there is going to be a season 3, it is going to be a different iteration. Like, because I want to continue pushing on that idea. Like, hey, look, there isn't just one way to approach all of this. There isn't just that one fixed way forward. Like, say, for example, when we first started, right? Like, all I knew was like having hour-long interview. That's what a podcast is, right?
But the interesting part was I didn't take a long time to explain. I think you were kind of just, let's do it. And you kind of were interested. This was piquing your interest and like, okay, it'll be fun. But most people, you actually have to, dare I say, sell the idea on it or explain value. And you're like, this is fun. I like talking. I don't have any time to spare, but I'll make it work. It'll be great. And then a lot of people don't take the time to just do something and ask later. Like all these executives in 9 to 5 in corporate are like, just sign up and figure it out later. And that's the only thing I think I've listened to and taken to heart from executive types, right? Because they're always blowing smoke out of whatever just to make themselves feel better, is my perception. There are great executives, and there's some that are on LinkedIn going, I get up at 3 a.m. to run 20K in my spandex. That's different. But for them to say, ask questions later, figure it out later, I think that's what you do.
That is what I always see consistently, right? Like, it's always keep on trying things. Just keep going. If it fails, try something else. Like, just keep iterating. Same as like we're talking about with the brands. Keep adjusting, keep pivoting. Like, it's always going to be the small ones. Like, rather than having massive pivots, small pivots every single time something comes up. Like, oh shit, like that failed. Let's have a small pivot. Oh, that particular angle doesn't work. Let's pivot. What makes more sense?
It's kind of wild to think of the podcast, the art of branding, as the sandbox for you. The constant A/B test, the iteration, the constant move and testing ground that just kind of is. Nobody else positions that way, or that I know of. They always talk about it should be for this, or selling things, or getting my messaging out there. And you're like, fuck it. I'm just going to do this as a gigantic A/B test in my sandbox, and this is going to be my creative space to do whatever the hell I want. Shut up and go away. Listen or not, I don't care. And that's kind of a magical thing that kind of brings back to the Badassery by B. Just figure it out, test it, throw it out. And if you get, banned from social media, you probably don't want to do it again. But it's harder to get banned in podcasting, which is delightful.
I think you've nailed it to like a T. You at this point, you probably know me better than I know me. Like, just like that makes a lot of sense.
It's kind of crazy because you do that with brand strategy. Like, I started to get into it, and then I had to go, whoa, I'm too new. We wanted to trade Z's on skills. I'm like, I white flag. I'm done. I need to take time to figure me out before I start to. You get to figure me out, because that's a whole different mind implosion altogether. So yeah, you do take people on a deeper level, and maybe audio wise, we've been there together, but it has been fun. So if I can convince you to do the 5-minute daily episodes, then we got a banger podcast. But until then, I don't know. We're just going to have to test things, and you're going to have to keep telling people about it, and then punch the camera or whatever different social platform experiment you come up with. I don't know.
I mean, I am intrigued. I'm more than willing to try things in that sense. Who knows? Maybe at the end of every 5 minutes, I'll just punch the camera.
Just one random swear word. And one of my friends has been trying to do something different with marketing. He comes off as he's going to kill me for saying this, but he comes off as a very nonchalant, boring, very polished character. And now he's doing these marketing strategies, but he likes gym and fitness. So he's doing headstands for 5 minutes and trying to explain stuff. He's falling over, turning red in the face, and he's passing gas. It's great fun for me because I'm a child on the inside, but he's trying something different. So I guess from that, it's good that he's just throwing it out there. He's got like 12 likes, but he's doing it. So to your point, just you never know. And people aren't going to remember tomorrow that it's going to suck. They're just going to remember that moment. Like, okay, he's trying to entertain us. I respect him. Just like you, where you're just trying to throw things out there and just see what happens. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And if you can convince your clients to get out there outside of that box, that container, don't chase the bees, but somewhere in between that box and differentiating without getting stung should be okay.
Just do one thing, stick to it, be consistent. And I know that is like said by everyone, and it is honestly not as easy as it sounds. So just
right.
Have it like written down. Like this is what I'm going with. Keep it to that.
Just that's it.
Like,
that's all we got.
There's no need to overcomplicate it. Like it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be simple, but not easy.
So what's with this question that you always ask? Because as creative direction behind the scenes, asking people like this monumental question at the end, and respectfully to your guest, like 70% of them going, since when did you ask this question? This is insane. I need 12 minutes to think about this. And then there's a giant pause of them kind of just talking over themselves, which is adorable. But a lot of people just kind of come off the top. You plan these questions. Is that something that you do on purpose, or have I just insulted your entire guest list? I don't know. I'm sorry if I have, but it's a challenge.
Yeah. So probably I've got around about 35% who have, like, to their full credit, they've got into it. Like either they've listened to an episode before and they're like, okay, sure, let me prepare for this kind of question.
I need to answer this.
Yeah. Or they already thought about this. So like do you want to talk about the question, right? Like, so the question is, what is the societal norm that you want to push back on? And the reason why I always ask that question is because that leads into my why of doing all of this, everything. And the why is like to push back on societal norms, those things that we should be doing rather than what's actually right for us. You know, be it in business, be it like in person, like ourselves, like our personal lives. And that's why, like, you know, even in the podcast, like I don't specify like whether this is your personal one or in business, like it's just something that you want to push back and teach others about. And
really gets people thinking, though, even if it's sporadic and it's unchallenged or it's unplanned. It's wonderful to hear them kind of come up with this, and then that inner chatter, like, oh, do I say this? Are people going to judge me? Is this too forward? And that's the magic sauce. It's joking aside. It's kind of nice to catch people off guard sometimes, and people come into this, okay, I'll just answer whatever, I got this. And people are great communicators, and some are kind of going, can I pass? And you're like, no, we're answering
It's
this.
my chicken wings.
Let's go.
It's my chicken wings. Like that question is my chicken wings.
Like 100,000 Scoville or whatever the hotness factor is, like the ghost peppery style. Just make it happen, be uncomfortable, and let's get through the question. And a lot of them are just terrific sports. They just go for it and they answer and they do a great job. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's nice.
It doesn't, because at the end of the day, I know that's something that everyone shares. There's always something which, you're living your life. You're just like this little box that's around me. Like, I feel uncomfortable. It's pushing on me in a certain way, whatever it might be. Like, be it education, teaching, the way that we have to approach relationships, like the way that the list goes on. Even like in terms of business, in terms of like women in business. Like, I've again, like going through all the episodes, there's a bunch of different, but they're all valid answers, and they're all something that's worthwhile to really push back on.
What are you pushing back on in the marketing and the brand strategy and the kind of just overall perception? What is that societal norm that cute, but let's pick something because we could be here for all day. Is there something? I don't want to say podcasting because I know you don't always frequent, or you don't always, and that's not fair to you. As something that you genuinely sink your teeth into every day, because there's more to the life than LinkedIn. There's corporate, there's small business, there's everybody trying to be zany, but what's the thing that's repetitive that's driving you nuts? Is there anything? Is everybody great? Or is there one thing you just want to go and smack, whatever that is that you want to smack?
Yeah, so a big one has always been like that perception around like what is the shoulds. Like, okay, you should have a financial stable income. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, but yeah, we do. We need to live, right? But you'd be surprised, like how far you can really push it, how far you're really willing to go. Like when push comes to shove, we push a lot of the things that we could do in life. Like, say for example, somebody comes up to me and she's there, they're like, yeah, so I really, really want to go to Spain. I'm like, okay, when are you going to do it?
And then they just start climbing back. The shovel comes out. They dig themselves deeper. So too many people are playing it safe.
I should be doing this first, or I should be doing that. Like, this is something that I want to push back on. If there's something you want to do, you don't know if tomorrow's coming or not. Like, tomorrow might not come.
What happens if you have the home and the kids and the people and the things and the stuff do you just get rid of it all? Like, do you just take them with you? Do you go on a van like these YouTubers and then shower once a year? I don't know what the answer is. Like, how do you get rid of those shoulds? Is that a whole different conversation?
You need to know for yourself. Like, I can't give that answer, because any one of those things that you just suggested could very well be the answer.
That could be your why. That could be,
right. Like,
and for some, they just, I guess if you take and you have zero money tomorrow, it'd be surprising how hard you'll grind to get those bills or whatever it is that's on your radar, monetarily speaking, to get it done.
Yeah. Like, I was talking to a friend, I think, over the last weekend, and they were talking, I'm worried about this, that. And like, yes, this is something that I can always tell myself. And it's like, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen?
Sauceless spaghetti, I think, for 30 days straight.
Ew,
that could be
gross.
Possibly up there. See what I mean?
That's pretty gross.
But if you got to do it.
I think I just, maybe I changed to like a different kind of food at that point.
Yeah, just hot water noodles, whatever it is, out of those
exactly.
takeout
1 minute
boxes.
Noodles. Like, I always think like there has to be a way. There has to be, whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe it's not tomorrow. I'm not saying throw your things over your shoulder and like just go now.
What you weren't telling people is that you had 12 roommates the first time you started business in a 2-bedroom apartment. That's what it was. So you could afford to do whatever you felt like.
I wish that was the case.
You'd have a lot of fun. They'd be like, yeah, I don't have to go clubbing. Let's just DJ here. It'd be great fun.
I mean, to balance that, sometimes you have that will, that way. Like for me, I guess little baby me, or like growing up me, covered for me now. I started working young, started saving young, and yeah, like that's what's covered me. But doesn't mean like, there isn't that fear. Like, and I do think that a lot of people that go into business, etc., like that fear will always like continue. Like, oh shit, like, I need to keep grinding. I need to keep doing this. Like, you don't want to just have like that one thing that you're relying on. You want to be like, okay, like I have this, but it takes a while till you have this. So at a certain point, it's just like, okay, well, let's keep going one single day at a time. Do what we can do. Enjoy what we can.
The small things in life, the little goals, and just keep iterating. It doesn't have to be, I would like, I don't know, mansion, my own island. It doesn't have to be just, how do you get there? Break it down and give it a shot. Worst case, you have to pick a part-time job or whatever and figure it out if that's what you need. But, otherwise you're just constantly nauseous inside. That's no fun either. So the balance is important, and you got to figure it out for you. You can't just do it because B says it'd be fun and you just travel the world. That works for you. Different things, different experiences, but it all depends on people. But stop the should. You said, just try.
Yeah.
Try it. Maybe I'll give it a shot. And then you have a should here if you need to come back.
Yeah, the shoulds will always be there. Like our society is made up of shoulds. Like we don't even need the government or like rules or policies to do it. Like it's now self-sustaining with it, like society.
Yeah.
Right. Like somebody else will be like,
going to be
why don't you get a job? Like just be secure. There's always going to be somebody around.
Yeah. And there's a plethora of school buses that we can convert for ages to travel around and live at home. And now that there's crazy internet technology, you can just do your thing from anywhere.
Exactly.
So it's kind of nice. It's good. So there we go. Lessons from Beatrice and how to disrupt, how not to disrupt, how to do things for yourself. And maybe you'll actually tie in the newsletter to the podcast one day. That's my dream, that you'll overlap them.
I kind of mentioned it. Like I mentioned Badassery by B, and it's like you can access it from like badasserybyb.com. Yay! Look at you. I can see your face going, happiness.
So
happiness. She's only just mentioned it right at the edge, but
it doesn't have to be the big stuff. We're iterating small bits by bits. We're getting there. You just got to do it to start, and then we'll get more comfy, and then just
I don't know.
share the love all over.
There's something in me that has like it's grating against me. Like
oh.
I don't know. Like, sometimes there's something that you're like, yeah, I should do that, but then you're like, nope, should do that, but nope.
There's so many shoulds getting in the way. That's weird. Somebody said that to me.
Yeah, I know.
Once.
It's just like maybe 5 minutes ago. I wonder who that was.
It's nice to see you're not perfect, because everybody that, gurus, self-proclaimed experts are saying you should do this or you should do that, and this is how the way. And then you're like, well, sometimes I screw up and don't care because I'm human, and I just want to talk about my favorite lipstick and shoes. So go away. I don't know, whatever it is. That was an episode. That's why.
Lipstick, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Like,
it's fine.
Go visit Badassery by B, and sign up to my newsletter. There we go.
The newsletter, so you can see more kangaroo-ness.
Well,
more karate chops.
See, the thing is, though, like that newsletter has a lot of things which I don't talk about on LinkedIn, which I don't talk about here on the podcast. So it's a whole different resource by itself.
Yeah, you get parts of Beatrice if you get the podcast or the LinkedIn or the website, but you get the whole Beatrice mentally if you sign up for everything.
Pretty
so you can
much.
get all of what's going on inside.
3 things. You just LinkedIn,
the trifecta of badassery.
Podcast, newsletter. That's it. Simple.
It's perfect. We got to keep it simple. One leg on the ground, maybe while you're hopping and reading, if you wish, to keep grounded.
Just in case you're not going to a gym. Yeah, sure. That'll work.
Yeah. So you go. You're doing people a favor, saving them hundreds of dollars a month so they can do their entrepreneur dreams, stop with the shoulds, and then read the bloody newsletter.
Yeah.
Because you're working your mind and your body out at the same time.
Exactly.
Whole new vision.
Keep it simple.
Lovely. Thank you for letting me take over. Thank you for doing the thing, moving forward slowly into season 3. I will remind you every day that that's important to you. But until then, I think this will be great. It's fun. It'll happen, and we'll see what the years bring us. And maybe somebody could reach out if they have questions to you about life and branding and all the things they're supposed to say, and the shoulds they should never think about again.
Well,
would that work?
Yeah, indeed. And thank you for being such an awesome podcast producer for season 1 and 2. Pretty freaky amazing. And yeah, taking over this episode. Definitely, guys, whoever's listening, reach out to Elijah, just in case you're looking up and around.
There's somebody listening to me up there.
Reach out to Elijah for some badass podcast help. He is the man for it. Just to get in your head and shake up those brain cells.
It's going to be okay.
Fine.
If you can talk at yourself in the mirror, you can talk at the podcast. It's going to be okay.
Got this.
Time for bloopers. Yay!
I wouldn't even live north of where I live. I'm just I was talking to this friend yesterday who's also moved here she moved from Canada.
Good for her.
She was like, you know what? I was expecting all year round summers. And I was like, same. I had this in Thailand and I moved here and it's just
it's cold.
Why?
Yeah. Where in Canada, did you know? Was she way up in stupid north or somewhere? Do you have any idea? West Coast, East Coast? No, just Canada.
Canada.
Okay. That's nice. Okay, cool. That's the same with me. You're in Spain somewhere, somewhere near the beachish, kind of. Good enough.
It's telling me your name, and then if we only just meet a handful of times, I'd be like, yes, you there.
Or
I have a talent.
You know this person?
My talent is making conversation without ever using names.
I did that for a call today because I was so in my head about pronouncing her name. Say Cala. Kala, I think. And she used my name a couple times. And I said, thank you so much for, meeting with me. It's been great. And in writing, I'll use it. But today I was like, no, I can't. I'm going to screw it up. There's no way. And it's going to be awful because she seemed really lovely and taking the time to meet with me and network, and nope, can't.
So now that explains why you've never used my name. Now I get it.
Beatrice, the Gesundheit at the end, that just amuses me. Good and you tolerate it, which is
it's just so easy.
I don't want to compare you to Sneeze, but it is funny because you mentioned it once. I'm like, that's gold. I got it. I'm 12 inside. You know better.
Oh God. Anyway. So what, are you going to do an intro? Am I going to do it? Am I going to be so guess what? Someone's decided to take over the episode, the grand finale episode. Guess who it is?
Who would do that? I have no idea. Can you tell me? I'm excited.
You're undecided? They're
I'm excited.
Behind you. No, I'm kidding.
I'm excited. This is hiding. This is not.
The kids. Okay. It's where'd they go? Yeah. Where'd they go?
Yeah, kids' friends put on way back 20 years ago. They had their sunglasses on. I'm like, I'm gone. I can't see me. What the fuck? Really? Are you? This is how they develop? I'm terrified.
Things have changed. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I mean that, and the fact that apparently now we're born in the late 1900s. Come on.
Oh, last century. That's also nice.
The which?
It's the last century.
That's even worse. Yes, I am now officially
Instagram,
a vampire.
TikTok, YouTube, they're from the 1900s. They'll call it the 90s music. Oh yeah, that was from the 1900s or last century. This classic came out. It's we're listening to Brahms or Beethoven or some crap that's 500 years old. You guys are insane. What's wrong with you?
Emotional damage.
You're not even that old. Think of the elderly right here. God damn.
So that makes you pretty much
geriatric millennial.
That's the word that I was thinking of.
I'm 2 years shy of Gen X. Yep. So I'm 81. 1981 is the oldest millennial, and I'm 82. So I'm 2 years away from Gen X. So I'm a geriatric millennial because I'm on the old side of millennial. Fuck you.
Hey, I did not come up with these terms. I'm just saying.
It wasn't that you. That was a general fuck you to the population.
Just like
You're
whoever
welcome.
invented this was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, what?
That's why I had to buy a motorcycle. It's the only way I could stay young again.
I kind of want a motorcycle too, but then I realized you need to use both your hands and your feet. And I'm like,
I took everything to resist, Beatrice, because you and I are awesome. We get together, we have some laughs, we're creative together, we have fun on the podcast. But that thing, that killed me. It's like, yeah, it takes two, whatever. I don't know. What do you do in a car? Do you drive one? Like there's a brake and a gas. It's like if you probably drive with 2 feet too, don't you? Like
well,
gas and brake.
Technically, it's one. Technically.
One? What do you mean? Do you have an electric car where you just have a gas, no brake? Is that what you mean?
Do you use both feet when you're driving a car?
I picture you two.
What? You're supposed to use your right foot for both of them.
That's correct.
What? Now you're just messing around with me at this point. Stop.
A little bit. You're welcome. You're efficient.
No, I only learned how to drive an automatic. Like we didn't have a manual, so.
Do they have? What about in Spain? Do they have automatics, or is it all like the 4, 5, 6, 10
I feel
speed,
like
whatever they are?
Europe is just full of like manuals, and I'm like, fuck.
Do you ride bicycle, or do you walk everywhere there? Is it close enough, or do you just try to?
I don't know how to
try to skill up wearing.
Ride a bike.
Did the heels? You bicycle?
Yeah, no, I don't.
No, you didn't do that either. What about like a little moped or something with a cute helmet or something to match? I don't know. Vespa, I think they're called.
I feel like you'd need to ride at least know how to ride a bike to.
Maybe if you go fast enough, you stay up straight.
It's totally
Science.
fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
My prowess is in brand strategy, not in riding bicycles yet. It's on my list, along with fencing.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I want to learn how to fence. Yeah. I've done some rock climbing. I've done. What else have I done in the recent time? I learned how to swim in the last 2 years. You're just like.
Can you hear the background? Are you able to hear the background?
Have you human before this?
So I'm just trying to think if you can hear this crap going on in the kitchen. Hope not. You can?
I can't. Then again, my earphones are just.
Oh, they're ruined. So, saltwater? Are you okay with that? Like they have the ocean there in the Spain. So you go swimming there, or do you mean a pool or your friend's backyard?
I prefer a pool. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't go in the ocean where the waves are meters high.
Sharks, being born and growing up in the country where everything can kill you. I'm just like, well, water, everything can kill you. That stingray, the thing that killed Steve Irwin, the thing that the guy who picked up everything.
He also asked for it. I mean, come on. He's a nice guy, but he egged on the different species to hey, what you doing? What you doing? You awake? You awake? Come on. I got a TV show. Come on. You can do it. And it's that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But whatever.
And his son's picked up the mantle, and well at that. Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
He's very, very intense, very stereotypical. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I've been away from Australia for too long.
Maybe I'm just trying to avoid the intro and I shouldn't. Should we start?
Yeah, I feel like we should just start. When you're only speaking about one thing, it's like your audience also seems to grasp it a lot clearer.